Hi, everybody. Okay, let's begin. People will be joining in, I guess, as we're proceeding in the webinar. I think we're up to about 35 people at this point. What I want to do is start this program by just saying a few things about myself, and literally just a few things. My name is Alcini, and with a couple of other people over the last several years, we've been developing a set of tools that apply a certain amount of science to what I'm about to teach you or demonstrate for you today. Now, what we developed is something called the Brand and Culture Alignment Toolkit, which is a series of instruments and methodologies that engage people more fully in the work that they do. I'll talk briefly about that at the end of the program. But today really is about teaching you how you can run a meeting um, uh, that encourages engagement and gets people on the same page with each other and on the page that they need to be in order to perform successfully for their clients and for their coworkers and the community they serve. Now, I've got a quote that I put up here. Oh, there we go. I can actually write on the screen, which is nice. I have a quote that I put up here, and it's a quote that we use in our own work. People, what we've learned in our research is that people don't really follow people. What they do really is follow what people follow. In other words, when somebody observes you doing something you love, they have a tendency to pick up on that and fall in love with what you're doing. And a great way to earn followership is by being a follower of something bigger than yourself. And that really is what we're going to be exploring today. So I'd like to start the program with an icebreaker. Now that we have people online, I want you to spend maybe a minute to think about a role model in your life who impressed you so much by what they said or what they did or how they lived their lives that you felt a little changed by what they did. So really what I want to do is maybe take a minute right here. I want you all to think separately about that. I don't want you to necessarily tell me who it is, but if you want to use your chat box or ask a question, just to tell me, was it a school teacher or was it a parent or was it a relative? Curious about that. I love to hear stories like that. So just take a minute and think about that. And then we'll talk about the power that role models have in influencing our lives and making us more effective people. And we've got hellos from people in Australia where it's 3 a.m. Farkas, it's great to see you here. We got one person offered, a college professor. I actually have a high school teacher that I was very impressed by. And I like to think that part of the way I behave today is due to the fact that I learned how to behave and become a better person from that high school teacher, even though that wasn't the subject they taught. It's a funny thing. It happened that this was an English teacher, but I learned life skills from this English teacher without them ever having to tell me what the life skills are. They never lectured me on that. I just picked it up. A couple of people have identified relatives, my dad, or in one case, my mom, and I think those are typical and very important, valuable lessons. The whole point, and I just want to run the exercise a little longer because I know we still have a few people coming in, and this will give them a chance to join the program. Anybody else want to offer a role model that they remember, somebody that they know? Looking at my chat box. Oh, actually, my first boss. My first boss, as I recall, was a role model too, but not for the reasons you'd normally associate. In some cases, and I don't necessarily want to explore those today, but yeah, there are such things as role models who teach you how not to behave. And the whole point of all this, and the whole point of this exercise, is to reinforce the point. Parent and a few teachers, one very special, always one very special. Thank you. What we're really doing here is reinforcing the point that we learn by observing others. And that's how we become the people we are. Now, most of us remember that as an experience that we had when we were children in school, but actually that follows us throughout our entire lives. And even people as old as I am, and maybe even a few that are older, can still learn to be different and still change based on behaviors that they see in role models that they respect and admire. Extreme ownership. So a couple of examples of role models that taught the extreme ownership is actually a really good kind of a point of view to have when we're thinking about this. People, again, remember, as we said, people don't follow people; they follow what people follow. when people detect that you are so committed to something that you feel a sense of ownership about it, when you feel as though it's a part of you and it's a part of the way you work, then you tend to communicate that enthusiasm to others. That in turn influences them to help you in that cause. So role models are important for a whole bunch of reasons, and extreme ownership, I think, is a great example of it. English teacher, amazing old girls high school. Thank you, Kate. Appreciate that. That's great. Great to know. And these are memories, by the way, that you carry throughout your entire life. And it's almost like muscle memory. You are the person you are today because of things you learned from people that you observed years ago, or maybe even as far back as early childhood. So my name is Al Cini. My background really is project management. My work, I've done some work for some pretty big companies where my job was to try to get 180 people or more to want to do something that they technically weren't paid to do. And I keep remembering a lesson I learned through Dale Carnegie. I'm not that old. I don't know Dale Carnegie, but I do remember Dale Carnegie once said that the only way really to get people to do what you want them to do is to make them want to do it. Making people want to do what needs to be done is really the kind of the holy grail of leadership. And what we're going to be exploring in this webinar are techniques that you can use with a team that you're a member of, an organization that you're already a member of. Let me make sure I can get this thing to work. There we go. Well, what we're going to be exploring are techniques that you can use with any team, any group of people to try to get them all on the same page with each other. Now, we call our approach brand and culture alignment, and that kind of begs a few definitions. So let me spend just a minute on this. There is a whole lot of conventional wisdom out there about what brand is. It could be anything from a logo to an edifice of a building to, I mean, brand is typically something that marketing people think about, and brand is largely a marketing concept. But for our purposes, we talk about brand as the way somebody behaves. So brand for us is behavior. When you behave in a way that makes you proud, and by the way, that's culture, attitude. When you behave in a way that makes you proud, the pride that you feel from behaving that way tends to make you want to behave that way even more. So brand and culture alignment really is about connecting the minds of people with their hearts, getting people to be happy about the work that they do. In fact, doing some work with a consultant who was helping us with some marketing, and he said, well, you've really solved the I hate my job problem. And I felt good that he said that. I don't know that I'd ever want to promise that, but getting people to fall in love with their work, no matter what their work is, there is a beauty in that. And what we do in order to make that happen is to try to take the work that people do and identify it with a role model that impresses them to become their best self. And when we talk about employees becoming more engaged in their work, I want to try to broaden that conversation to include the entire world of what we these days are calling stakeholder capitalism. It is important that organizations not just engage the people that work for them, but also that they engage their customers and all the people that have a stake in the work they do, and their whole leadership team. And what we try to do with the approach that I'm going to be sharing with you today is to identify the role model that represents a team's best self when it's living its best day. When we bring that role model out and give everybody an opportunity to get to know that person and respect that person, what we're really doing is giving them an opportunity to change. Change is kind of a hot button topic, and I'm sure you've all heard the phrase change management. We tend to avoid using that phrase because change management often is an unpleasant experience. People have lots of memories about it. What we know is something that Peter Senge wrote in a book called The Fifth Discipline. People really don't resist change. What they resist is being changed. Now, remembering what I was talking about when we were talking about role models, change happens when people find something that makes them better to do instead of something that they're already doing. So change is something that people organically embrace, people gravitate toward. When they fall in love with something, when they really become engaged in something, then they tend to change for the better in pursuit of that thing. Everybody's busy at work, and I kind of want to make that point. There is a whole lot of activity at work all the time, and people are, especially these days, working 40, 50, 60 hours a week. But a lot of that work is work that is actually impeding other people's work. A lot of that work is self-indulgent work. A lot of that work is inwardly focused. And as a result of that, people aren't paying as much attention to their communities and the people that they work with as they could. And so what we're going to try to do with this technique I'm going to teach you is to get people all on the same page with each other about the nature of the work that they can fall in love with if they just think about it a little bit. Now, okay, we're going to learn how to conduct a meeting. The meeting is going to start with a question, and I want to share with you that there are really three kinds of questions. We've worked really hard on a question that I'm going to be teaching you in a few minutes that actually changes people's attitudes and engages them in what you need to work with them on. Now, there are three kinds of questions you can ask somebody. You can ask them a question that you know the answer to, like, did you know that only a third of the workforce is actually engaged in their work? Or did you know that only a third of projects actually deliver the results they promise? We call that sometimes the problem with the thirds. It seems like 2/3 of the time things just don't work. So you can ask questions that you know the answer to, or you can ask a question that you don't know the answer to, but you know that the other person does. Like, what is it that's keeping you up at night? Those are interesting ways to start conversations. But if you want to start a really, really great conversation, then you want to use a question that neither of you know the answer to, but is an important enough question that it's worth you both investing your time and your effort in working together to find the answer together. Now, this particular approach that we're going to be going over today is an engaging approach in itself. People enjoy engaging in this kind of a meeting. I'm going to be showing you how to conduct this meeting. It's very inclusive by nature, meaning everyone participates. And we live in a world where that's very, very important. Most of all, this approach works. And we'll share with you later on some statistics that demonstrate that. Now, the team that you're going to be working with might be a team that you're a leader of. It could be that you're the boss. That's fine. It could be a team that you're a member of, and that's also fine. Or it could be that you're a trusted advisor or a consultant and you're working with a team at your client location, at your client's location. Maybe your client's executive leadership team, or maybe a department within your client's company. The most important mindset that you need to adopt in order to conduct a brand and culture alignment meeting, and that's really what we're talking about here, is you need to put yourself in the mindset of a facilitator, which means even though you may have opinions of your own, your job isn't so much to talk about yourself as it is to allow other people to talk about everyone. So a facilitator's hat is really what you have to be able to put on, even especially if you're the boss. That might be a little challenging, but you're going to be learning from your people and encouraging your people to speak up. And the last thing you want to do is to try to direct or certainly not bully your way through that. So you need to become a facilitator in order to have what we're calling a brand and culture alignment meeting. And here we are actually having one right here with an example team. So for our purposes, we're working today with a quality control department. That department is part of a larger company. It's got some people in it that are new, only a few weeks on board, and it's got a bunch of people who've been with the company or on this team for many, many years. What we're doing is inviting them all to a brand and culture alignment meeting. We're going to send them an email the way you usually do, create a meeting invitation, and tell them that you're going to be meeting with them in order to align the team's brand and culture, which is something that'll intrigue them because they've never heard that before. Now, when you finally pull everybody together, maybe you'll have the luxury of having everybody in a room. In order to be able to conduct this meeting, you're going to need a marker board, a whiteboard, or a flip chart. You'll have access to the people. They'll be in the room with you if it's a physical meeting. But let's face it, the way things work today, and probably for the foreseeable future, you're more likely to be doing this on a virtual platform. Now, we've done plenty of these via Zoom, and the participants gallery works perfectly, works just fine. And but what you'll probably want to practice is to become comfortable with the whiteboard feature of the platform, or maybe share your screen with, these are actually pretty good applications. Freeform notes applications. You share your screen and you can move the note paper around and write things on it in freeform. And it's a very comfortable environment to work in, but you'll probably want to practice that a little bit in advance. So now it's time to learn the question. And the question is actually something that we've been developing for many years called the incorporating question. This is the question that you can ask any team at the outset that is, and the answer to which neither you nor any member of the team have in your heads. The only way you can get the answer to the question is by working on this question together. Here is the question. Think of this entire team, our entire team, as though it were a single person doing its best work on its best day to keep all of its promises and achieve all of its goals. Now, I'm taking my time through this because it is key. This question is a key, fundamental, very important question. Some people have referred to it as the BCAT, Branding Culture Alignment Toolkit, the BCAT prayer. This is how we start meetings. Think of our entire team as though it were a single person doing its best work on its best day to keep all of its promises and achieve all of its goals. What would this person be like? In other words, if our entire team were working as a single individual human being that you could get to know, a role model, let's say, what would that role model do every day? What would we observe that person behaving like? What would we learn from that person? What would we hear that person say? What would that person be like? And that really is the core question. And it's a difficult question because nobody's used to getting asked a question like this, but it's a very powerful question because working on the answer together is really the secret of what makes this approach so effective. This is really what we call step 0 of brand and culture alignment. Most of the people in the room that you're working with are going to come up blank. You got to expect that. You're going to ask this question and people are going to say, well, I really want to wait and see how somebody else answers it. So it's not a bad idea if you have an answer in your head that you can offer as a starter question. So you could write down something like, comes in on time every day. Which for some jobs may be really important. Then see how people react to it. And most of the time, what you're going to get is a reaction that suggests that nobody really cares all that much about what you wrote. That's fine. You've broken the ice. You're now starting with BCAT step 1. It's really what we're talking about here is a 4-stage process of aligning everybody. And once you've offered something, even if you've had to erase it, you're going to start hearing people in the room offering their opinions. And when they offer these opinions, you're going to learn a few things about them. Eric on this team happens to be a very creative individual, and he's known for being able to create killer PowerPoint presentations. In fact, he's kind of the go-to guy for PowerPoint on his team. So he's offering good presentation skills. Offer that to everybody as an idea. People might offer some of their own opinions about that. At the end of it, all the ideas are potentially good ideas. You write it down. So incorporating questions on the left side of the screen there. What you're doing now is recording the attributes with a little bit of refinement that people come up with as they offer their own opinions. Once people start answering this question, you're now in BCAT, Brand and Culture Alignment, step 1. And that naturally starts triggering other responses in other people in the room. So Sean, remember, this is a quality control team. Sean is very much a scientist. He's going to stress the importance of logical thinking and how on this team, science is more important than art. We'll agree with that. We'll write that down. This person, our team, when it's doing its best work on its best day, is definitely logical and objective. Pete's going to stress the importance of methodology and approach and measure twice, cut once. What we're really thinking about here as an attribute is when we're doing our best work on our best day, we're meticulous and exacting. Jane is the new person on the team. So what you're probably going to get from new people is pass. That's allowable. When you're going around the room and you want to give everybody a chance to talk, it's very important that everybody's included in this. Some people may not be comfortable offering attributes right away. They can pass, they come back again later, that's fine, or they can just echo something they heard from somebody else. So Jane passes, that's cool. Amy stresses the importance of becoming masters of what we do, always learning new things. When we're doing our best work on our best day, we're always professionally developing our skills. Great. Let's write that down as developing mastery. Lisa's contribution is the importance of deep thinking. Now, that's pretty general. So we talk with Lisa a little bit and everybody else. What Lisa means is you don't just take things at face value when you're a member of this team. You need to look for the root cause of problems. Now, what we all agreed as a group is a good way to express this is by saying, One of the attributes of our team when it's doing its best work as a single person, as a one person doing its best work on its best day, is to look for root cause and not just treat the symptoms. Finally, actually, the team leader, the person we're facilitating this with, has a particular hot button that he was thinking about all the way through, and that is when you send an email out, you want to make sure that you read it over a couple of times before you click send. And that's common sense. And so we talked about that a little bit, and everybody on the team agreed that what we're really describing here is an exacting and precise person, somebody who just doesn't make mistakes. They think things through before they talk. And that gave Jane an idea. Jane believes that in our team, it's very important that we, and you'll notice how the conversation is changing from a me to a we type conversation. We communicate mindfully. Everybody nodded in agreement when they heard that, because what we do is so important, because what we do in our quality control team drives policies at so many levels in the company. We have to be really careful before we express ourselves to anybody that we've thought through how they might choose to move forward based on what we suggest. Mindful communicator is very important. Everybody agreed with that. That completes our list of attributes. Everybody comfortable with that? Step one is to gather a list of attributes that describe our organization as though we're a single person doing its best work on its best day. That sets us up for the next step, which is to rank these attributes. A good way to do that is by asking everybody in the room to work separately for a few minutes and rank order the list of attributes that you see on the left, putting their let's say in order from what they think is most important to least important. So give them a few minutes to do that, and then ask them, how many of you have ranked good presenter as in your top 2 or 3? We got 3 votes for great presenter. We got 3 people in the room who thought logical and objective behavior was important. 2 people thought meticulous and exacting was important. 4 people thought continuing to develop your professional skills was important. Looking for root cause, also important to 4 people. Being exacting and precise, a few people thought they were important and put them at the top. Mindful communicator by far got the most number of votes as one of the top 3 attributes. Now, this makes it possible for us to take this list of attributes and rank them. Mindful communicator comes in on top, and everybody agrees that's most important. Now, this really is what we're doing here is BCAT step 2. We're taking the attributes that we gathered from everybody, and we're working as a team to begin to collect them into something that paints a picture for us. And that picture is going to be the picture of the role model that represents our team's best self on its best day. So hang in with me here. Mindful communicator ends up at the top. Somebody who looks for root cause, everybody agrees that's number 2. We are objective, precise, and meticulous. That's very important to us. We're working hard as individuals to develop mastery in our fields. That's important to us. We make effective presentations. It's not necessarily at the very top of the list, but it certainly made the cut and became part of who we are. And all these ranked attributes for us begin to define for everybody who we are when we're doing our best work on our best day. So my best self on my best day is somebody who attends professional development programs. Check that off our list on the left. Somebody who celebrates great ideas even when they're someone else's. Now, it's interesting because this isn't really reflected on the left, but Eric offered it because it triggered something in him. So we wrote it down. It's important not to ignore anybody in this process. Everybody is right. Nobody is more right than anybody else. We might want to work with them to clarify what it is they want to say. We might take time on that, but everybody's opinions are correct. When we're doing our best work on our best day, we're always referring to the raw data and not just working with somebody else's conclusions. That's part of looking for root cause and being objective, precise, and meticulous. And by the way, every now and then we use creativity to earn support for some of the conclusions we reach. So we know that while our job is really scientific, the people that we support, the people that we inform are executives who often don't think the way we think. We need to use creativity every now and then to make some of the points we need to make. Finally, think twice, send once. That's definitely a kind of a hallmark of a mindful communicator. So that is BCAT step 3, which is what is it that we look like? Who is the role model? What's the North Star? It's a phrase we use a lot in our work. What's the North Star for this team? What is it we guide ourselves by? That gives us a good mental picture of something that we call a role target. A role target is really a role model, except it's not a real person. A role target is the personification of a group or a team or even an entire company that is so vivid in our heads that we can get to know that role target, want to be like that role target, and actually begin to plan our days around learning from that role target to be better people. Now, in our case, this role target has the brand of expert, meaning the behavior that they exhibit every day is that they're an expert in their field. And their culture is precision. The attitude that they have, what they're proud of, is that they get it right the first time, that they work really hard to make sure that they really understand something and aren't just glossing over things. Now, at the same time, we're not just that. We are a little bit megalithic in that we're also a little bit on the creative side. We know that we need, after we've been scientists, we need to be a little creative about how we express ourselves. So part of our brand is we're a little bit also of a creator, and we also have a gift for innovation or creativity. So this is primarily we're scientists. Secondarily, we're educators. We teach people what we know. Now that we've got that picture of a role model, for me anyway, the fun of step 3 in this process can begin. We ask everybody to take out a sheet of paper and write down what we call make a personal alignment plan. A personal alignment plan is a list of commitments that we're willing to make in the way we behave on a day-to-day basis that borrow from the role target for our team, so that we're being a little bit more like our role target. And in that process, we're either beginning to do new things that make us more effective, or we're stopping doing some things that we might be doing now that are making us ineffective. And Eric really, and I'm recalling this because it's a real case. Eric said, I understand that not everybody on this team is as good as I am at making PowerPoint presentations. So I am going to start looking for ways to collaborate with my colleagues to help them make more persuasive presentations, which is start behavior for him. Typically he worked on his own. He wants to reach out to his colleagues and help them. He also identified something that he does that he wasn't proud of. He made the commitment and actually wrote this down and shared it with everybody. From now on, beginning tomorrow, I'm going to support rather than compete with the smartest idea in the room. Meaning for me, it's more important that we come up with a good idea no matter who its author is. It's not so important that I get credit for the idea. It's more important that we get credit for creating a climate in which this idea presented itself. I hope you're all seeing the importance of this. So it's kind of a little bit like a reality TV show confessional. Going around the room, people are writing down and actually sharing with each other things that they are going to begin doing that are different from what they're doing today, in a way that allows other people to remember what they said and maybe remind them going forward. Remember you said you were going to do this in the brand and culture alignment meeting? Well, maybe you need to work on that a little bit more. In fact, on an ongoing basis, that's how this develops. Sean put together a plan, and in his plan, he's going to randomly double check observations from the field to make sure that they're accurate. This is something that he's going to start doing, and he's going to work with Eric more closely to summarize and report his results in a more engaging way. So each of these personal alignment plans is a reflection of the individual, in this case, Sean, wanting to be more like the role target that represents the team's best self on its best day. Pete has kind of been dogging finishing his Six Sigma training. And this happens a lot in companies. It could be an accounting firm where people need to be CPAs. It could be, in this case, it's an engineering company. No, Pete has made a commitment to set a firm date, actually create a deadline for himself to complete his Six Sigma Green Belt certification, which is something that's been holding him back and actually holding the whole team back. He's also committed to working with Sean to learn more about how, in fact, this team analyzes field observations and turns them into recommendations for management. Okay, I'm going to stop there because I think you've got a pretty good idea how this works. Step 1, step 2, step 3, all of this is about creating a role model, working together that represents our team's best self on its best day, taking advantage of the fact that most human behavior, even in adults, is learned by example from watching others. Psychologist Albert Bandura It's a quote directly from him, and a lot of his work was dedicated to studying this phenomenon. Now, in our work, the work we do, we found that there are actually 4 different role models that represent any organization's best self. And there's a lot of research to indicate that there's neuropsychology underneath all this. The way our brains behave actually fires based on 4 particular kinds of role models that, I mean, all organizations really combine all 4, but they combine all 4 in different orders, which is what makes them actually singular and unique. There is a brain pattern that goes along with what this particular example team does, which is research and quality control. There's a different brain pattern that's generally exhibited by people who are members in an executive leadership or management consulting team. There is a separate, somewhat different brain pattern that goes along with sales and marketing efforts or with education, schools. And if you're in the construction business or the healthcare delivery business, there's a brain pattern that goes along with that. What we found in our work, and we've done about 8,500 of these over the last several years, what we found in our work is that teams generally roughly fall into 4 broad categories, but each team is unique from all others based on the 4 priorities that they associate with each of these 4 basic core role models. Now, I know that you've all heard the expression that when a team is working really well, boy, those people really drank the Kool-Aid. Or you've heard, boy, those people are all rowing in the same direction. Well, I'm going to use another analogy. We often hear when people observe a team that really has its act together, that those people are all singing from the same sheet of music. Step 1 of the process we've just reviewed is about getting everybody to sing from the same song sheet. That's a very important first step. We call that first step consonance. And all of this is about answering a key question. Who are we when we're delivering our very best performance every day? Who are we? So step 1 is about getting us all on the same song sheet. Step 2, when we begin to rank the attributes that we come up with that represent our role target, step 2 is about making sure that the behavior we're engaging in is resonant with the community that we serve. Meaning, okay, we're all on the same sheet of music, and that's good, but we need to be performing music that the people in our audience have paid to hear. Are we doing what's expected of us? Are we accomplishing our mission? That's step 2. And finally, step 3 is about each of us making sure that every day we're singing from the same song sheet, we're singing music that everybody wants to hear, and we're delivering a performance that we're proud of. Our role in delivering this performance is something that makes us feel good about the work we do, makes us happy when we're doing that work, and makes us feel good about ourselves when we finally get home at night. Now, if you do this, you will find that the people on your team become twice as, in fact, I've seen it much higher than this, but our research indicates that you can double the level of engagement that the people on your team have in the work that they're doing. If you're working with a client, you're helping them find a way to get the members of their team to be more engaged in their work, which, no matter what your professional services area might be, will make you more effective. The more effective the client you're serving is, the more effective they are at following the advice and guidance that you're giving them. People are 40% less likely to resign in an organization where they're where they're doing exercises like this, and they're 21% generally more productive, which can be measured in terms of money. If you're an organization, obviously a company would be interested in that, but a lot of teams serve a higher purpose than money. And so it's not just about money. The love of your work and the way you express that love is what makes you a more focused, more committed, and more productive person in pursuing that work. We have a whole suite of solutions that we offer along these lines. We facilitate meetings like this for people. We have tools that are remarkably inexpensive that you can use to actually put scientific measurements on a lot of the subjective measurements, subjective functions we've talked about. There are a whole bunch of websites you can go to learn more about what we do. We have a certification program to teach people how to do this, use our tools to do this more effectively. And of course, our plan is going forward, once I get better at it, our plan going forward is to conduct this webinar a couple of times a month for free, just to make sure that everybody knows that whether you're meeting by Zoom, I mean, this is a cure for COVID, not the disease, But one of the symptoms, key symptom of COVID is that people are working remotely and feeling disconnected from each other. What we're doing here is talking about a way that you could use the tools that we're already using, Zoom and GoToMeeting and WebEx, the remote platforms that we're already using to pull people together emotionally and mentally to get them all on the same page. So it's kind of a cure for COVID, although that's stretching it a little bit. It's a cure for one of the symptoms. We hope you'll follow us on Twitter and maybe on LinkedIn. And here's all of our contact information. I hope you'll reach out. And that is the end of my webinar. This is an approach that we've tried in every one of the areas that you see there on your left, in particular in government. So whether you're a police department or a scouting troop or a softball team, this approach works. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask? And keeping in mind that if you got questions after this, I'm easy to reach and I'm happy to set up a meeting with any of you. Anybody? Anybody? Everybody was great. I really appreciate you participating in the webinar today. I hope you got as much out of it as I got out of delivering it. It's a fun subject, and there's a way for you to actually align and inspire. I mean, magical things happen when you align the people on your team around the purpose that they serve and inspire each of them to become the best version of themselves that they can possibly be. I hope you'll use some of these techniques. A lot of people have. They work really well and they're fun and they're engaging. So thank you. And remember, send out an email. I'm al.cini@getbcat.com. Visit our website if you want to know more. And I have a couple of chat questions. And I also want to bring up, in case you're thinking about leaving, and it's certainly okay with me, really quickly before you leave, if you can answer 4 questions about the webinar, I'd really appreciate that.